Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know that you can hit the like button if you'd like to. Helps a lot. You can follow me on Instagram at Josh Wickland. That's my personal account right now, so I'm either going to try to swap the usernames. I'm just afraid somebody's going to try to take it in the process because I think you have to wait like 14 days to swap it. This is the second time filming this one because the camera didn't focus for the entire video. Like 20 minutes ago is when I started it. Got done and put it onto my computer, and the thing was blurry the entire time, so it was beautiful. Good thing I like making videos. I just don't like making the same video twice. Alright, I'm going to pull up the questions. The responses to the question. Sorry. What is something someone taught you that will impact you forever? First one. Seeing my grandma live has taught me to persevere with hope, regardless of circumstances. I think there's a lot to learn from the elderly in general. Their generation was just so much different than ours. I mean, way back when they didn't even have running water, like, come on. And even when running water came on, they had like, what, one faucet? And now we have probably a minimum of like 3 to 5 in most houses, including sinks and bathtubs and even toilets. It's just so much different, and there's such like a gap between our generation and that, like, I'll say like 60 something and above. There's a much bigger gap between those two generations than in any other generation, unless you obviously go farther back. But between the technology has changed so much the past, I'll say 10 years even. Once the internet kind of started being adopted as a general source of information, maybe that was even like 15, 20 years ago. But that was back when it was like dial-up. It was a lot less convenient back then too. But yeah, just learning what that generation has gone through, whether it be technological advances since then, or even just their life in general, what they had to learn from and things they had to go through. Don't forget that generation. A lot of those people in that generation have gone through a lot worse than a disease that killed 0.0% of people and then locked us in our houses for a while. Like, we were locked in our houses with as much food and Netflix as we wanted to. Like, when these people had like the Great Depression, they were like out on the streets all day long looking for work while they were starving. That's different. Come on. Yeah, just be open to learn from anyone, especially that generation. I think they have a lot to share, and they get a bad rap sometimes. From my math teacher, I learned how to break down stress and solve tiny pieces of a big problem at a time. He also taught me how much of an impact you can have on someone, even unintentionally. So, I think we all have that person in our lives that ended up being a mentor without us expecting them, without them intentionally being a mentor. Just from things of them sharing their wisdom so naturally, could affect us so positively throughout our lives. So, like, this person, you have a math problem and you break it down, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I don't know how to do math. So you break it down step by step. And in life, we will have these big problems that arise, and the only way to solve that big problem is not tackling it all at once. It's setting little goals along the way and breaking it down and starting at those parentheses, and then the next step, and then the next step. And eventually you're like 80-90% done, and then you can just tackle the rest. That big problem is broken down so small. And that goes for you guys as well. People that you think that you're mentoring, whether it could be someone younger than you or older than you. It could be a sibling or just a friend. People are watching, and you can unintentionally mentor someone and change their lives just by sharing your wisdom and the things you're good at. So really pull those skills out of you that you see and pour that into someone else, because you could indirectly affect someone for the rest of their lives. And that's positively and negatively as well. And that's scary that we have power to do that. And maybe we shouldn't have the power to do that, because people shouldn't take everything we say so harshly that they could be affected negatively for the rest of their lives. But there are people who will be. So we gotta be careful on that. My mom used to say expectation is premeditated disappointment. There might be people watching and they're like, no, wrong. Everything I'm sharing isn't what I necessarily think. I just give my 2 cents at the end of it to sort of break it down and sometimes make it make sense in my own mind. I do agree with this. The way I word it is high aspirations, low expectations. Because with this, it makes it sound like you shouldn't have any expectations at all. So the difference between aspirations and aspiration is a goal, and expectation is, if you don't reach that, like she's saying, if you don't reach that, you're going to be disappointed, and what that's going to do is this disappointment they're talking about is like a weight, like, oh, I didn't do it, I can't do anything. It's the way I word it with high aspirations, low expectations is you should set those goals so high, but don't even expect to reach them. Aspire to reach them, really work hard to reach them, but if you don't, you're going to use that disappointment you're going to get from not reaching those goals. It's just going to drive and motivate you to do it at a later date, and that's going to propel you forward. If you set this low goal and you reach it, and then you set another low goal and you reach it, it could take you 10 steps to get there. Or if you just aim for step 10, you might just like cruise through the first 5 steps and then fail, and that sucks. But now you're up here at level 6, instead of aiming so low and making those goals one at a time. So there's a fine line between these quotes, and I think the way I word it, the reason I word it that way is because it's easier to understand the nuance behind the difference of expectation and aspirations, and disappointment just takes on a different meaning in those, because in this it's obviously bad if you have high expectations, and I don't even think for yourself. If you expect higher of somebody and they don't reach that and you're disappointed in them, that's going to reflect really negatively on them, especially if that person's in a vulnerable situation and you show how disappointed you are in someone. That could just tear them down. But it's at the same time, it's not, you should have these expectations for them, but you need to elaborate why you're disappointed, and it's not because they failed you, it's because they failed themselves and you expected more of them than they were able to accomplish. And that's what's going to drive those people forward too. So expectation, it's so broad, because expectations are bad if they drive you to a point of disappointment and just kind of like a crippling disappointment, I guess, is when expectation is bad. But if your expectations are met and you use that to drive you forward or drive someone else forward, and you can share that with them, I think that's actually beneficial. So like I'm saying, this quote, I like this lesson, but it's harder to understand the nuance behind it, especially without a conversation. I'm sure if I talked to this person, they would have elaborated the same way I did. It's just the way we understand it and perceive it over 8 to 10 words or whatever it is. All right. 4 words. Wow. Okay. My grandma taught me when I was 7, when you're brushing your hair, you start at the ends. That's what I do. All right. Last one. Things are rarely, if ever, the way they seem, unless seen through God's eyes. Yeah, so I think, I know we kind of have like 3 classes of people who believe in God, people who don't believe in God, and people who think there could be a God. From the viewpoint of believing there is a God, that's where I stand, is you'll never know. So things are rarely, if ever, the way they seem, unless seen through God's eyes. And it's a reminder that we can't just judge someone's motives because we don't know them. Even if someone's doing something good, you can't just assume that they're a super good person because they might have really selfish motives behind it. And there's people who you think are doing something really selfish, but deep down their motives are pure and they're really trying to benefit maybe their family. They might be doing something really selfish and you're like, why don't you go help that person? And it's because they're helping all the people back here that you don't see. So God is the only one who can truly see and judge someone's motives. And that's a good reminder for us. Even if you don't believe in God, just picture it as you'll never understand someone's motives unless you are that person. Because you truly can't look into like the depths of why they are doing something without having a conversation with them. And sometimes those people don't even know. I mean, there was times where I would kind of go out of my way to help people. And that wasn't entirely bad, but for me, it made me feel good about myself. So ultimately, my motives were selfish. So people were like, he's such a good person because he's doing this, this, and this for this person. Whereas deep down, I was like, why do I have to do this? So I projected this nice guy, this good guy, this helpful person persona. And then years later, I looked back and I was like, that was actually selfish of me because it made me feel good while subliminally not wanting to do that. Like if it cost me money, I was like, oh, I could have used that $20 elsewhere. So it wasn't really benefiting me, and I had to get my heart and mind in the right place to be able to do that again and actually have pure motives behind it. And sometimes we're not able to look that deep ourselves unless we really can step back and meditate on it, or if we're God. So believing that there's God, or believing there's a higher power, looking and can see the depths of our heart is actually a pretty scary thing because there's so much darkness inside that I think we don't even know about. And there's a lot more selfishness behind it. And that should be humbling, and that should even cause us to want to try to discover that. Because knowing that God's looking into us and seeing this dark part of our soul that we actually do have access to if we are able to step back and really pay attention to the details on how we process things in our mind. Just like me doing these good deeds for people and then ultimately doing it for my own pleasure and my own good and caring more about how I felt than caring about how the outcome of how it affected those people positively. I think there's power to be said about that and understanding why we do what we do, and not just because someone told us this is good, you should do this. There's so much like nuance into this, and it's hard to elaborate. It's good to do good, but it's better to understand why you're doing good. I guess that's how I would sum it up. And there's not really any way that you can know why someone else is doing something, whether it's good or bad. The best way would obviously be having a conversation with them, but ultimately you still may never know because they might not know. They might think they know, but they actually haven't stepped back and reflected on why they do things too. And those conversations might bring that up, and just having that conversation with somebody can really open up things into themselves and to you. So I do encourage that. All right, so yeah, thanks for watching this to the end. If you've watched all the videos leading up to this, thanks a lot. If this is your first one, feel free to go back and watch. Otherwise, stay on the path with us, and I will plan to continue uploading more and more videos. And yeah, let's learn together. All right, thanks guys.